We always hear that the most productive and successful people have morning routines that virtually assure them not only a great day, but improve mental health as well. Unfortunately, for most of us, our morning routine is an urgent trip to the restroom, maybe a quick shower, and if we're lucky, a cup of coffee as you rush out the door to fight traffic on your way to a job that you don't even want to go to. Well, today, I want to serve up a fresh perspective on not only how to kickstart your morning, but also how to supercharge your mental wellness. Today, we're unpacking the life changing concept of priming. And priming isn't just some buzzword, it's a science backed tool for transforming your day from so so to so good. And if you're ready to learn how priming can work for you, join us on the Life Design Podcast for our Mental Health Mondays series. We'll see you there. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe now so you can join us on every episode. We truly appreciate it. And be sure to engage in the comments section of your favorite platform for your chance to be invited as a guest on one of our episodes. Hello, you wonderful listeners. Welcome back to the Life Design Podcast and today's Mental Health Mondays episode. I'm Michael Borland, your host and navigator, as we take an insightful journey through this fascinating world of our minds, our mindset, and our mental health and wellness. Today, we're turning the spotlight onto something that might just change the way you start your mornings. I'd be curious to know how many of you have heard of priming. No, I'm not referring to priming walls or cars before we paint them, but it is a little bit like painting our minds and our lives with positivity, with empowerment, and maybe with a little bit more peace. And doing it in a way that allows us to take control of our day and the futures that we create. So let's dive right in. Picture this: you wake up feeling more like a zombie than a human. You don't even want to get out of bed because you don't see how today's going to be any different than yesterday. And quite frankly, yesterday wasn't even worth repeating. Did I just hit a little bit too close to home for some of you? I personally know I still have those kind of mornings. But what if I told you that you could flip the script on its head? What if instead you could wake up and within just a few minutes, you could feel like a superhero that's ready to conquer your day? Because that, my friends, is the magic of priming. It's it's often thought of as kind of like a workout, morning workout, but for your brain. And its result or its process is like setting your mental stage for a growth mindset, for peak performance, and definitely for positivity, no matter what the day tries to throw at you. So let me start with a simple question. What exactly is priming? Well, think of it as like a mental espresso shot. It's the art of tuning your thoughts and emotions to set yourself up for a fantastic day every single day. And the best part is that it is backed by science. In the psychology realm, it's about preparing your brain like a warm-up exercise, but for your thoughts and for your emotions. Priming is a technique where you use an initial stimulus, or what some may call a trigger. It could be a word, it could be an image, or a sound, or an action that you do. And you intentionally use that trigger to influence your response to a subsequent stimulus or to a variety of stimuli, or what you may think of as to a variety of experiences. Don't worry, we're actually going to look at some specific examples, but Google explains it this way. Priming works by activating an association or representation in memory or in your memory just before another stimulus or task is introduced. So what does that mean in the real world? Well, in a real world experience, It's like planting a seed in your mind in the morning that repeatedly blossoms throughout the day. Okay, let me share some cool studies that blew my mind when I read them. Have you ever held a cup of coffee and felt that the warmth in your hands, or any kind of hot tea, whatever, and felt the warmth in your hands literally change your view of someone else that you're interacting with? And don't get me wrong, I'm not referring to all these memes that we all joke around with about coffee keeping me out of jail, or offering people some choice between, hey, let me drink my coffee, or you're going to take an unexpected trip to the hospital. That's not the point. But see, these dark humor, pun intended, these dark humor jokes, they actually hold a version of the truth. So let me explain. Actually, let me explain with a very simple and yet interesting example. So, psychologists at Yale, they conducted a study where participants held a cup of coffee, or a warm cup or a cold cup, in their hands, and then interacted with other people. Those that were given the warm cup of coffee, they perceived these other people that they interacted with as generous and as caring. However, the people that were given a cold cup of coffee to hold during that interaction, not so much. They found the people and the interactions that they had to be as cold and uninteresting as that cold cup of coffee itself. Now, I will say, on a personal note, I do enjoy iced coffee, but I think you get the point. See, it turns out that the physical warmth of that coffee, even just a warm cup in your hand, can translate into the level of emotional warmth, or what we perceive as warmth, in what was set up to be a virtual identical experience. So we hold the warm cup, we get more warm and inviting feelings from an experience. I mean, that's incredible. Matter of fact, I got a warm cup of coffee today. So that being said, another intriguing study that I came across was done at Harvard. And in this study, they focused on the power of subtle cues on performance. And what they did is, in this study, they took two groups of Asian American women, and prior to taking a test, they simply reminded them of their ethnicity before the math test. The second group, they reminded them of their gender. So they reminded them just through conversation that they're women. It's brought up in the conversation. And it's like a mental reminder. They use it like a mental reminder to say, hey, this is part of who you are. Let it shine during this test. And what the study recognized was the common belief, it utilized the common belief that certain Asian cultures are known for being good at math. And this belief, if you think about it, this belief isn't specific to women, the gender of women, right? But it is specifically associated to certain Asian cultures. And with the only difference in these two groups being the simple reminder of either ethnicity or gender, the results were substantially different. The women who were reminded of their ethnicity scored way higher on the math test than the ones who were reminded of their gender. It seems like such a seemingly insignificant stimulus to remind them of that, but it offered a huge impact on the performance that the results of the performance during the test. So what's the key here? Okay, remember Google's way of explaining it? In memory. So meaning, if our learned memory causes us to believe something to be true, it can drastically change the outcome of our current experience. Well, if that's a key that we should remember, then what shift can we make? Can we or should we make to achieve the higher results for ourselves? How do we harness this process or this understanding in our daily lives? And really, what does this have to do with priming? Well, the primers in our examples were the warm cup or cold cup of coffee, each of which encourage a vastly different result. The other primers were the reminders of either ethnicity or gender, again, leading to a vastly different outcome for the participant scores. So let's take a look at a priming routine of someone who is arguably the king of peak performance training and coaching, which is Tony Robbins. Tony swears by a morning routine that he's had for years, which is kind of like an 8-step workout for your mind. And don't get me wrong, he's over the years he's varied this process, but this is one of the methods that he's publicly shared has worked tremendous for him over the years. And that's by starting with sitting actively, or what one might better understand as intentionally, right, with good posture. And then he begins breathing exercises. Okay, he has a very specific way that he does breathing, breath work, immersing his mind at the same time with thoughts of gratitude. And then he goes in and begins visualizing a healing light that surrounds him and engulfs him and actually fills him. He goes from there and he moves on to actually envisioning sharing that energy, okay? Sharing it with his loved ones and with other people, just as if it just comes out of him and goes straight to them. And then ending the process by getting pumped up to face his day. Okay, by doing this, he does this through a kind of like a celebration of his routine and of his current goals, and just gets himself pumped up. And then he begins his day with that. I've actually heard this routine explained as literally like being, how was it said? Like a breakfast of champions for your brain. Okay? And many, many, many other people have these morning routines. But it's not just, like for Tony, it's not just his brain. Okay, this is priming him emotionally. This is priming him physiologically as well. And as another mentor of mine, doctor that I follow and have learned from over the years, Dr. Joe Dispenza would say, it puts Tony into a state of brain-heart coherence. And I've got some other videos on that, or you can go watch Joe Dispenza's videos. They're pretty fascinating as well. So let's cut through some of the myths, though, about priming or about this process. And I want to point out some supported facts about priming, because priming isn't just like a process of feel-good tricks that we use to feel good for a moment in time, for a few minutes or what have you. It's about training our brain to cultivate positive emotions and positive outlooks, and to recognize positive things that are there that we otherwise wouldn't. It's kind of like rerouting our mental GPS from, negativity town to the state of positivity, right? It literally rewires our brain. And it's not a bunch of, psychobabble. Okay. Priming is a tool that's used in therapies such as NLP, neural linguistic programming, if I could speak today here, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. The techniques are literally about reshaping our thought patterns for the better. And priming, when it's done properly, it literally rewires our brain and our emotions and our physiology for success. So think of it this way. in a real world setting, just like I explained Tony's routine is. In a real world setting, imagine starting your day with a mindset and feeling it physically in your body that says, today I'm unstoppable. Okay? And being able to believe this consistently throughout the day, regardless of what happens around us. Now, and let me remind you of this. There's more than one type of priming. Okay, so let's share a couple of those. Two of the most popular or common types of priming are called associative priming and perceptual priming. So, associative priming is where the stimuli that we use is related but not directly linked. Okay, so I'm going to use the concept of words in this. Think of a dog and a cat. Okay, these are completely different animals, but they're often found referenced together. So when you hear the word dog, it primes your brain to quickly think of cat because we're used to hearing them together. If I were to say, cat, you may quickly think dog. You may quickly think mouse. You may quickly think of the sound of purring, right? Because those are things that are common. They're associated to cat. Whereas if I said, what's the first thing that comes to your mind without sharing the primer word, like the word cat, I just said, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? The chances of you saying dog or mouse or purring, they're infinitely less likely. But if I say cat, they're infinitely more likely. This is because we associate these things together. Now, if we look at perceptual priming, there's some similarities, but some very stark differences as well. This involves stimuli that are in a category of some type, okay, like hand and sand or goat and boat, which are in category because they sound similar. The words aren't necessarily similar. They don't necessarily associate to each other typically, but they're in a category of sounding the same. So some might think, well, cat and dog are categorized as animals. And that's true. But if I say cat, did any of you think bear? Did any of you think of a bear right off the bat? Not likely. Even though they're both categorized as animals, the association of dog or of purring is much more powerful to cat than a bear. Let me share this. These two techniques can actually be used in combination. This will help explain it a little bit differently. We can use them together to be much more powerful. So if I were to show you a picture that I took while I was looking out across a beach at the ocean, and I asked, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when I say hand? For many people, they would respond, sand. Why is that? Because they have two types of primers in that picture and that word. Hand sounds like sand, but you're also looking at a picture of the beach. Or even if I just said, thinking of a beach, and I say the word hand, many people would say sand because there's sand on the beach. That is an associative primer. And then hand and sand sound alike. So it primes your mind to think in that direction because it's categorized as sounding the same as well as associated to being at the beach. But if while looking at, or let me give you a different example. If this one's a little more extreme to give you an example. If while looking at that same picture of the beach, If I were to say, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when I say the word goat? Completely not associated to a beach. But the sound of goat is the sound of boat. And if, especially if you're picturing in your mind, or if it's in the picture, there's a boat floating out on the ocean. They sound the same. Okay. They are, they are categorized through the sound of the word goat and boat. And a boat is associated to the ocean, and it sounds like the word goat. This gives you an idea um, of how these work together. And these examples and the techniques used in the two studies that I shared show how versatile priming can actually be and how it shapes our thoughts and our responses. Okay, these techniques are used constantly in marketing and advertising. They influence our thoughts and our actions, meaning our buying habits, without us even recognizing it. And remember this, priming is not, a one-off trick. Okay, it's a practice. It's a habit that we create, even a lifestyle that we can create. It's a lifestyle for those who truly want to use it to improve their lives. When you begin to learn to consistently prime yourself for success in the morning, you're not just setting the tone for your day, you're programming your brain to seek out positive things in every experience, to transform the challenges that you face throughout the day into opportunities, and literally to turn ordinary moments into extraordinary ones. Because we're training our brain to not only feel like we're in charge of that experience, of that moment, but to actually take charge of that experience, of that moment, of the day. Now we get to the what I might say is the most important part of today's discussion. And that is, what is the takeaway? And the takeaway is that you have the power to massively influence the outcome of your day, of your life, with just a few simple steps in the morning. I'll go back to Tony. One of his sayings is, where your focus goes, energy flows. Okay, by priming our mind each morning, we're not just setting the tone for our day, we are sculpting our brains. We're training them to find joy, to find fulfillment, to find success within the everyday hustle. It's not just about feeling good. It's about directing our focus towards what we want the outcome of our day to be. And by transforming how we perceive and interact literally with the world. So tomorrow morning, try it. Sit with intentionality. Breathe with intentionality. Prime your mind, prime your emotions, prime your physiology so that they work for you throughout the day rather than against you. Who knows? You might find yourself turning Mondays or perhaps Wednesdays into your favorite day of the week. And yes, those are the 2 days the Life Design Podcast posts. The reality is, you'll likely find a lot more calm and more peace throughout your day, regardless of what experience you encounter or what experience you create, just through the process of priming. So give it a try. You don't have to use Tony's specific method. I mean, I could spend another 30 minutes going over a variety of ways of priming. The key is finding something that works with you, taking the time to sit intentionally with your body in a good posture, doing some breathing, okay, thinking of things that you're grateful for, Some people use journaling as priming. But there's specific ways of journaling as well that are very powerful. And the effect that doing this has on our mental health and our mental wellness by, again, creating more calm in our day, more presence, helping us feel like and actually be more in control throughout our day, helps eliminate anxiety because we've already prepared our minds, right? Where does anxiety come from? Anxiety comes from areas, we're getting nervous because we feel that we're out of control, or we can't handle a situation and we don't know what's going to happen next. But when you're in control, you don't have anxiety about those same situations. We may feel in control in one area and still feel anxious about another area. But it's pretty rare where someone feels that, hey, I am in control of this situation. I know how this process is going to go, where that they feel anxious about that. They might feel excited and they might confuse those two feelings. A lot of people confuse those two feelings. Matter of fact, I just heard of another study where they were teaching kids that every time they're in an experience where they start to feel nervous or anxious, they were literally taught that that is the feeling of excitement. You're confused. Don't confuse it with being afraid or being nervous. And the results that those children had throughout the series of the study were drastically better than the results that were through tests, through social engagements, and all kinds of other stuff. So this is where it plays into real life. This will affect how you interact with coworkers, strangers, your loved ones, and friends and neighbors, and everyone that you interact with, and how you interact with yourself. Okay, this puts you in a much better place of your self-esteem and your confidence. So give it a try. Practice making it a habit. If it's 5 minutes in the morning, if it's 15 minutes, if it's 30 minutes, whatever you can, and I don't want to say what you can spare, make it intentional, make it a priority. That's it for today's Mental Health Mondays. I hope that you truly take this to heart. Please remember to like or follow. Be sure to engage with us on any of our platforms. Reach out to me. Let me know your thoughts on this. Let me know what process you use for priming. Be it in the morning, you can create a little 3-minute prime throughout the day before you go into a meeting, before you go into any type of setting that you want to get the best possible result from. So stay tuned for more insights every Monday and Wednesday on the Life Design Podcast. And until then, keep priming, keep growing. And remember, every day, every experience is a chance to turn life around, to create the life and lifestyle you want. So I look forward to talking with you soon. Until then, live awesome and enjoy your journey.